I was very angry as an American that we were attacked, and go take it down their throats.
Again, I hate, a lot of this stuff I hate. I don't fucking enjoy doing this, telling people I had a drinking problem, I got medically retired, had some PTSD and depression, anxiety. I still struggle with that. But
suffice to say, we found ourselves in the perfect storm.
Yeah.
By 2015, he was medically retired in 2013. By 2015, it was very evident that we had a real problem on our hands, and we were just growing more and more disconnected.
I didn't think so.
I was really sitting with that and thinking, I don't want to give up the fight. I'm a fighter, but I don't really have a choice because I'm a mother. So what do I do?
But you're in this awakened dream state. So once your eye shades are on, you're in the movie, and your movie is your life. I mean, it's nuts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Good Trip Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Pella. This is a series of conversations with folks from the fields of entertainment, medicine, business, and beyond, each one with their own unique perspectives and experiences regarding psychedelics as medicine, tools of therapy, personal use, and more. All to lower the societal stigma of psychedelics and raise awareness as to what is going on in the psychedelic space. Today's guests know exactly what's going on because they are part of an incredible movement. Amber and Marcus Capone are a married couple who I got to know a couple of months ago when I performed at their gala. They are founders of VETS. I'm wearing the shirt right now. Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions. It is an organization that raises funds and helps veterans who suffer from PTSD and other traumatic issues go on trips overseas for psychedelic therapy retreats and come back with just a wave of positive change, which Marcus Capone has experienced personally after serving 13 years, most of which were overseas away from his family. He came back to the States a changed man for the worse. And it was actually Amber who suggested that Marcus go on one of these psychedelic medicine therapy retreats, which changed his life and in turn has changed many more people's lives because both Marcus and Amber were inspired after that trip to found the VETS Solutions organization. You can check them out at vetsolutions.com. Let me make sure it's .com and not .org. Hang on, VET Solutions. It's .org. It's .org, everybody. It's .org. I was wrong. Do not enter .com online. Don't do it. vetsolutions.org. I had the incredible opportunity to meet up with Marcus and Amber down in San Diego prior to the VETS Gala, which was held down in San Diego. And we met up and we recorded this podcast and I performed at the gala, which was so fun. I love these guys to death, man. I'm happy to call them friends, happy to be a part of the family. And I'm sure you all will get a whole lot out of this podcast too, as we learn and explore more about how psychedelic medicine can immediately help folks going through PTSD struggles, and beyond that, potentially getting that same medicinal practice and use of psychedelics into our mainstream medicine practices. That's the whole goal. That's the goal of a lot of folks. And these folks right here are achieving their goal to help lower and end veteran suicide and help give veterans the tools and the resources they need to make themselves happier and better parts of society and bring themselves to a happier and better part of their lives. These are incredible people doing incredible work. I highly suggest you check out vetsolutions.org. But first, a super quick word from our sponsor, Doc Parsley's Sleep Remedy. Now, this is a product that was created by Dr. Kirk Parsley, a former Navy SEAL, who's actually on an episode of the Good Trip podcast coming out soon. And during that show, we talked a bit about his experience working with fellow veterans to get them off of prescription pills and off of sleeping pills that are so damaging to your body. And it really inspired him to create Sleep Remedy, which is a blend of different ingredients like magnesium, 5-HTP, L-tryptophan, and melatonin, all of which are meant to combine and mimic your body's natural progression into sleep. So if you have trouble sleeping at night, falling asleep, relaxing into sleep, or if you wake up feeling not fully energized and refreshed from a good night's sleep, I highly recommend checking out docparsley.com/Brent to get a discount on Doc Parsley's sleep remedy, which comes as either tea that you can have before bed or capsules if you're not into drinking liquids before bed. And I highly recommend it. I had a great night's sleep last night. You can tell because of how much I'm smiling right now. Do you see the smile? That's a good smile, baby. That's a good sleep smile. And that came from Doc Parsley's sleep remedy, which I have had such a good time integrating into my overall wellness routine. So again, docparsley.com/Brent for a discount. The Good Trip podcast also brought to you by Odyssey. Odyssey is a sparkling caffeinated beverage that I absolutely love. It comes in 4 flavors. It's got 85 milligrams of caffeine from green tea, and it's got 2,500 milligrams of mushrooms. Not magic mushrooms, but don't let that deter you, because these mushrooms are meant to sharpen your focus, your creative edge, and your ability to get through your day and accomplish all your tasks with clean, smooth energy, no jitters, no anxiety, none of that. You can trust me because I have at least one of these every day. Odyssey is a sparkling mushroom elixir that you can find on Amazon and online at odysseyelixir.com and in various stores across the country, Albertsons, CVS's, and a couple others. You can go to odysseyelixir.com. There's a store locator, and you can also order online from their website. Highly, highly recommend you check out Odyssey Elixir. It is delicious. And right now, please enjoy this uninterrupted trip with Amber and Marcus Capone. Guys, how are you? How you doing? So good to see you. Why do you look so good? You look like too good. I feel like I don't look good. I'm wearing a shirt that I haven't washed in 3 days. You guys look so good.
Mirrors.
We're playing dress up right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah. This is going to be a cool weekend. I'm so excited to be here.
This is going to be epic.
Yeah. So this is the second year that you've done this event?
Yep. The first year was last year. We had Tim Ferriss host a panel on stage between Rick Doblin and Rick Perry. So that kind of set the stage. It was like Rick squared. And it was sort of set the stage for... Well, it's very indicative of our entire mission.
Yeah, it was actually incredible because Rick Doblin flies way over here, Vietnam,
He called himself on stage a draft dodger.
A draft dodger, right? And
Rick Doblin did?
Yeah,
and
that's
then hilarious.
Rick Perry, flew gunships or AC-1, I don't know if it was AC-130s, but he flew, and here they are on stage, talking about the same thing and getting along, and it was actually pretty fucking cool.
See, we can get along. All you need is some mushrooms, and that can get everybody. You know what I mean?
That's the start.
Yeah, that's the beginning. Now, I do want to give people a little bit of backstory. I know a bit about your story.
Okay.
And then we can dive into all the other fun things.
Yeah.
You were a SEAL. Yeah.
I was 13
Not
years.
the animal, the position. Yeah.
There's plenty out here. It's
yeah.
5-minute walk. I was. I graduated Southern Illinois in 2000. Mm-hmm. Got Amber pregnant.
I got pregnant before you graduated.
Congratulations.
Wait, hold up. Got pregnant.
Details don't matter.
Graduated, had Caden, enlisted.
Wow.
In that order. So it was an exciting year.
And then 9/11 happened.
Oh, wow. That was right leading up to that. So you were going to enlist prior to 9/11 happening.
And prior to that, I didn't know what I wanted to do at 22. I didn't want to put a shirt and tie on and step off in the private. All I did was play ball growing up, and so it scared the crap out of me.
Football,
baseball, basketball, swimming, skiing, all of it.
Yeah.
So I didn't, so the SEAL teams were really intriguing and it was just what I wanted to do. And
when you first joined, you became a breacher.
So
I've read that.
I became a breacher, and what a breacher is, everybody goes through the selection, which is BUDS, and that's 6 months, and then you go to advanced training, and that's 6 months, and then you finally get to your SEAL platoon, and you work up for 2 years, and you do all these different type of skills, and you start getting attracted to certain things that you want to do. So some individuals, grew up in the South and the Midwest, and they shot, long guns their whole life, and they become snipers. And others, are kind of dumb and they just want to kick down doors and beat people up, and that was me. I was a breacher.
He's very good at beating people up.
So a breacher does a lot with explosives, and I really enjoyed kind of that part of the whole game, and I want to learn more about it. And so, but it is not just all explosives. There's a lot of other things, but a breacher is getting into places that, you can't just get into with a key.
Yeah, and your brain is probably getting throttled more than other positions.
Right.
I would assume.
It is, unless you bring those guys close to you, and then their brain gets rocked too.
Oh, great. And then you can share.
And I got that. Yeah, we share.
And you can share.
So I was a breacher for a couple years. Well, I mean, for my whole career. But I always say that because I always feel bad. I did 13 years, and I have friends that literally are going on their 30th year of being a breacher. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and that was a 13-year period, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
At what point during those 13 years did you start to feel any type of like negative energy start to come up, anxiety, depression, anything like that? Did that start within those 13 years?
It did. I would say it started probably around 2007, 2008. 2005 was tough because that's when the whole lone survivor incident happened, and Marcus's ordeal, and that was my task unit, and so we lost almost half our sister platoon, and so that was like really tough. And at the time, nobody knew really anything. It was like the largest loss of life in kind of SEAL history at one event, in one event. And so, at that time, they thought it would be a good idea to send a psychologist out to talk to the individuals, thinking like, oh, we're just, we'll shuffle guys through every 30 minutes. And I think the first individual went for over 3 hours. You know what I mean? So like we weren't prepared, right? Like it just basically what it said is like, we had no idea what this was going to be like. And so, that was really tough because at that time we thought we were all invincible. It was still early, like 2005. And then we realized like, holy shit, like dudes can die doing this. Yeah. So it just kind of shifted your perspective a little bit. And then, and then it went on, but I'd say around 2008, like I just, Amber and I weren't doing well. A lot of deployments. We were gone.
Series of deaths. Yeah. Too. Like every deployment, at least one guy wasn't coming home. And in many cases, multiple guys wouldn't come home, or they would come home really wrecked, hurt really badly. And it definitely felt like Russian roulette. It was pretty intense. 2008, Marcus was actually at an outstation, and he was set to do a swim. That one of his best friends from Bud's training ended up doing, and he died doing the swim. And so,
what do you mean by swim?
There was a river in Afghanistan that was nestled along in the northeastern part of the country of Afghanistan, and we were trying to figure out a way to get across this river, and it was like a class 5 rapids, and I went up there to try to figure out like if we can get across this thing, and it was super gnarly. And my buddy wound up being the guy to try to swim across the river, and we wound up finding his body 12 hours later, like 50 clicks away, because it was just, it's like one of those things. And so, just a lot of these things, at the time, you brush it off and you move on, but there, it definitely weighs on you, and sometimes you think like, could I have done anything different? Could that have been me? Should it have been me? I was never, I did everything in my opinion, quote unquote, not right, but, I just kept going like everybody else does. And it's always like when you take a break, and it's like when I took a break, it's almost like everything just stopped, and it got a little bit more challenging. But, going back to your question, I think in 2008,
that's when I started noticing problems for sure.
And you and I weren't doing well, and I think it just had to do with a lot of this, and Amber would say like, dude, every time you come back, you're like a different person.
He was completely checked out.
Sure.
So we went to marriage counseling, I think twice. We both twice that we walked out of there, I think we were like yelling at each other, like stormed to our cars.
I
and ran off.
continued
I'm
to go.
I'm not going to this bullshit again.
True
Yeah,
story.
it's terrible. So that was like the first, and then I started seeing my own like therapist. Then they had a command psychologist, and I think that was just like a check in the box, like, hey, you have to go see this.
Well,
dude.
that also sounds like the psychologist that they sent out to talk to people for 30 minutes each,
Probably
and
the
then
same.
somebody went for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it just feels like maybe the structure wasn't even there at the time.
Yeah,
It was like laying fresh tracks though. Like there was nothing. It was really a first.
Yeah, it's no fault to anyone. Like
Yeah.
we're talking about, you know, we always go back to the VA. Like everyone's always trying to dig, especially in interviews. Like, oh, the VA's bad. And it's like, well, no. Like everyone there actually really cares. They just might not know, or they might not be allowed to.
Yeah.
They're doing the best they can, learning as they go. I
Yeah.
think that now the supports that military members have now are great. They did not necessarily exist when Marcus was active duty.
So you were learning as he was going at
Yeah.
the same time. What was that like?
Yeah. And also like having these realizations that, oh, you can die doing this. I remember being so naive. He was in BUDS training, and, you know, this all came about very abruptly. We didn't plan on having a baby, so that was a real curveball. And then all of a sudden we're married. He's at BUDS. And I remember thinking, like, I just have to get through this 6 months. That was the easiest part of his entire 13 years in the military.
Not
for me.
Yeah. Well, Bud's okay. Hang on.
That wasn't the easiest part for me.
I pitched. So I do content with Black Rifle, like you guys know, and I'm pitching them a video where I try to do Buds.
Do it.
But like I'm already regretting the pitch.
I mean, can I be your instructor? That'd be great.
I mean, yeah, I would love
that.
for
That'd be
somebody
great.
that knows me and like cares a little bit about me to be my
JT and I
instructor.
would be very nice to you.
Yeah.
Do
What
it.
was one of the hardest like physical activities in Buds that you did? Because I know it's insanity. I know it's crazy.
All the water stuff was great. I loved being in the water, so for me that was fine. The running, I just put my head down and like ran hard, and so that didn't really affect me. There was like 2 times of Buds that like really sucked. One, I was like completely dehydrated. Maybe I didn't eat, but they did this thing called, I think it was called the elephant walk, where you're not carrying the boats in your head. You're like carrying them like by a handle.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to like continuously keep up with the front boat. Like you're supposed to touch the other boat. And I was done. Like I bonked, you know, and I'm like almost pulling it back. And like the rest of the boat crew is like pushing forward. I'm like, guys, like I'm bonked. Like I can't, like I'm smoked right now. Like I just need to like keep moving.
Yeah.
So like I remember that because it was like I was really having trouble keeping up that day or that evolution. And then one other time, one of the corpsmen in second phase, which is dive phase, at corpsman, you know, like your medic, but he was an instructor. I was like, hey, I can't clear my nose and my sinuses, and we had dives. Like you have to be able to clear in order to dive. And he gave me some kind of, you know, Afrin or something to clear it up, but you're only supposed to take like a certain amount. And I remember specifically, like he gave me, you know, he was like, yeah, 6 sprays in each nose or something crazy. And I'm like, I think that's a lot. Well, those 6 sprays were so much because we went right ahead and did the obstacle course. And I was able to do the O course really quickly and easily. But then we had to put on a pack. I don't remember what the weight was. And then after you do the O course, you hump it 3 miles, you drop the pack, and then you do the obstacle course again.
Oh God.
Well, on the 3 mile hump,
You're
like,
making me tired.
No, it's crazy. But
Don't
you know,
worry, you're gonna do it all in
and
your
usually,
video.
usually like putting weight on my back is like nothing. Like I just go. But this day, again, like I bonked. Like I got a mile into it and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Like my heart's going to explode. Guys were passing me that like were looking at me like, what the hell's wrong with him? And I remember this one guy in class, you know, awesome individual, Ben Souders, like gets up next to me. He's like, Marcus, what's going on? I'm like, I have no fucking idea. Like, I'm bonked right now. He's like, you know what? I'm going to run next to you this whole way and just make sure you finish. I'm like, you're a bro. And he did. He freaking, and he could have just took off.
Yeah.
He got right next to me and we both kind of jogged in, dropped our pack, and I was just shaking my head like, you know, what's going on? So anyway, those 2 times, like I thought I was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And these are stories that I knew nothing about. So
Yeah.
this goes to show like how much our lives were completely separate.
Right,
I felt like
right.
he was living 2 lives.
Right.
I was living like Groundhog Day. And I was having these realizations like at the very worst times, like, oh shit, this wasn't just 6 months. This is like indefinite. And oh shit, guys really can die doing this. Because at some point I thought like, wow, these guys are so, like, they're invincible. Like, they don't die. I don't know what it is. They just don't die. And no one in our community was prepared for June 28th, whenever we lost like 11 guys, I think, in one incident.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah,
that was 2005?
2005. And that was just like this massive realization in a very short amount of time that this was serious. The war was serious. And I always supported Marcus. I always supported him in any goal that he had and his desire to become a SEAL. And I was like actually really stoked for him that he got to go overseas and fight. I was very angry as an American that we were attacked and like, go take it down their throats.
Yeah, that's why Amber said, "Oh, this is indefinite." I was like, "Yeah, this is indefinite. This is great. I get to, do this with my buddies. And
I get to preach.
Yeah, I get to preach."
And that feeling, certainly it was replaced with these realizations of like, oh my gosh, this could be us. And so you just sort of live in this, this world of like having your black dress ready, having your slideshow ready, having your plan ready in case you get the knock on the door. Yeah,
that's heavy. The closest I've been to the military is watching American Sniper with the volume on really, really loud. And it didn't give me anywhere near those emotions. But I can try to relate, but I can't.
There's a lot of good movies.
There's a lot of good movies, dude.
Really
Marcus's favorite is G.I. Jane. It's how he became a SEAL.
Which one? January
G.I.
Jane? Oh, G.I. Jane. Yeah, starring Jada Pinkett Smith.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Dude, I just shot a rifle for the fird time. I'd shot handguns before. I shot a rifle for the first time. I hit 1,000 yards.
You're kidding.
I hit 1,000 yards. Isn't that cool?
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
It felt so fun. I was like, oh my God, I have to do this more.
What do you like shooting more, the like a handgun or a rifle?
Rifle.
Do you really?
Yeah.
See, I'm the opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Why for you?
I think because I'm lazy. And I think it's just much easier to like have this like little pistol that I can carry on. Like
it is real quick.
Done.
It's like you have a second dick on your hip. It's fantastic. But the rifle was like, I don't know. There's something really meditative about like lining up the shot, taking a breath, dialing in.
It is.
You could do a video about that, meditating while you're shooting.
I know. I had an idea because I just went hunting for the very first time with a couple of the Black Rifle guys. And I had an idea when I was there. I want to go back and shoot it. It's a Los Angeles guy goes hunting for the first time. And he's got his shot up on the deer. And he's like, wait, hang on a second. And he takes his beads off and he puts them on the barrel. And he goes, all right, now the shot is aligned. So I got to do that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amber has a good video. She shot a belt fed.
I did.
I think. What is it? Oh, the belt.
Like,
fed by the belt. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all
wild.
I did was...
Yeah. And they're like, no, shoot again. And she puts it down. She's like, no. She's like, I don't. She gets up and goes, turns around the camera. She goes, I don't have the need for speed like you guys. She's like, I'm good.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with guns. I didn't grow up around with a military family with anything even remotely like that.
I didn't either. Like you, my parents were hippies.
Yeah.
And they went to Woodstock and, they bathed in mud and
my mom
did a lot of acid and the rest of it.
She brought me to dead shows. I don't know what was in my blood at age 2, but whatever it was, I'm here now and I'm grateful.
There's a picture, I joke about this, that I saw growing up, but it's my mom. It's like in I was 76. So it's in 76 and she's got like a full, I love you, Mom, by the way.
9
I
months
love you,
pregnant.
Mom, because she's here. She's got a full belly, so obviously I'm in there. And in one hand, she's got like a cigarette. In the other hand, she has like like Johnny Walker Black. And I always say like she stunted my growth, obviously. So.
Obviously, you could have been 7'8" instead of 6'8". That's great. Did you? What was the atmosphere like growing up around drugs? Did you guys grow up with the DARE program?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you said you're from the Midwest, and you're from kind of
Island.
nearby.
Yeah, Long Beach, New York.
Oh, New York. That's
Nassau
right.
County.
That was the island, not this island. So growing up, I mean, the stigma was wild.
Yeah, I mean, we were the only. So I went to public school through 8th grade, and I went to all boys Catholic high school, like Notre Dame Brothers in Queens, in Flushing, Queens, where my dad went in the 60s. And the Long Island kids, there was about 5 or 6 of us that played football on Long Island. We all got recruited to play at Holy Cross. So the Long Island kids that went to school in Queens, like we were the only kids that like we drank beer.
Yeah.
And all the other kids that we went to school with in Queens like smoked pot. And we're like, oh my God, like, they're so bad. Like, why is there such a difference? But like it was the difference. It was
Yeah.
You know, it's just the way it was.
And
Yeah.
I grew up absolutely in the DARE era. I had friends that smoked pot and I didn't. You know, I would be in a car full of people getting high and I would be like, no, you know, I don't need to do that.
Yeah. I didn't smoke until I was 18 and then not again after that until I was like 23. And then I started experimenting around 24, 25.
So I was the same way.
For the
Like, I
past
think I
couple
tried
years.
it for the first time in Hawaii. I was there for a month, like once. I didn't even know what it was. And then not really again, a little bit in college with the bros on the football team. And then when I found out I wanted to be a SEAL, I read in one of the books from Vietnam that SEALs don't do drugs. And from that day forward, that was it for the next 14
There was
years.
plenty of drinking going on in the SEAL
Right.
community.
Isn't that crazy?
A little drinking. I'm sorry, there's no drugs. There was just
Yeah.
drinking.
Yeah, there was just
And a
alcohol.
lot of it.
Yeah. There was a lot
It was
of
all in
that.
good measure.
Yeah.
And
We were burning out.
especially- Yeah, I mean, like everything kind of revolved around alcohol. Like you celebrate, you drink, someone dies, you drink. you
God,
make a
and
mistake, you
alcohol is such a downer.
Totally.
It's such a downer.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, to already have symptoms in the late or the early 2010s as you were kind of entering your last few years of service, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You know, I struggle with it because even like, you know, a drink or two is like good. But like everything else, like
Good.
everything in moderation. you
Yeah.
know, like 10 or 12 are probably not that good.
Well,
Yeah.
Marcus
Andrew
and
Huberman will tell
so
you
many
one
of his
drink is not good for you.
Yeah.
Marcus and so many of his former teammates have this like all or nothing attitude. So when he goes, he goes.
Sure.
There's really no throttle
Probably
back.
like you, on and off.
Yeah.
Two switches.
Yeah, for sure.
On,
yeah.
off, no mid.
On, off. High, nothing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. So during those last couple years, you were starting to see big changes from him in a
We really weren't together that much. So the little like glimpses of him that I would get, I would be like, this isn't good. This isn't good. But when it happens slowly over time and you're really not together for sometimes 300 days a year.
Okay, so that's kind of what the cadence was for you. You'd be gone 90% of the year or
A
something
lot.
like that?
Yeah, a lot. And a lot of times it'd be, you know, a week, back a week, you know, gone 2 weeks, back a week, gone three
home a
or 4
weekend.
weeks, back a week. Yeah. I mean, it was,
Wow.
that was from day one, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you really, I mean, you come home and go like, where's the glasses? Where's the
Who's
fork?
deciding that schedule? Or is it at the mercy of
It's
others?
It's
Do
a
you-
mixture. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a mixture of like, here's your training block for 2 years, and you know, whoever's in charge, your leader, your senior leaders are trying to fill that schedule up. But you know, if you don't fill it up as a senior leader, you might be looked on by your leader, by those leaders above them. Like,
Yeah.
what are you guys doing? Why aren't
Yeah.
you training?
And
Yeah.
You know, so like,
Yeah.
let's just shove everything we can, as much as we can, you know, into a short.
my perception too is that if you didn't want to be looked at as like a bad SEAL, you said yes to everything. And then the more you're gone, the more discontent there is within the family. And so that when you come home, you don't fit in. So you want to be gone even more. So it's like this self-licking
Wow.
ice cream cone.
It should be.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a married lifestyle, like by any means. Like, you
Yeah.
should not be married before
You
you go
shouldn't
into the
say
team.
should not be, but
I
it's
don't. I mean, I don't
difficult.
think you should be, because, well, okay, it is very difficult.
were.
Well, we were, but like, I don't think it's, you know, it's better because, like you said, because then you do have the option to go to this school and that school and this school, and you can decide to stay home and not learn and get better, or you can go to these schools and learn and get better. Just like you're trying to be, you know, you're trying to be an expert at your profession.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to learn and work and travel, because that's where most of these like schools and things were at. And so it's very hard if you have a family to try to balance, you know, when you're just starting out, to prove yourself and become this, you know, warrior, to then go, okay, well, I'm going to balance my family life, you know, at the same time
yeah.
while I'm trying to be an
Wow.
expert in something. It's just, it's very difficult. Like, it doesn't work. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, like, the math doesn't work.
It's a mathematical equation.
It's totally a
It sounds
mathematical
like a
equation.
mathematical equation.
We leave it up to the economists. They
Uh-huh.
can tell you, like, no, this doesn't work.
So
Yeah.
what were some of the moments that kind of made you think that something was actually more wrong than typical in years past?
So, there were a lot. It's hard to pick one.
Sure.
But I would say that when we left Virginia Beach and he left, what do you call that?
What?
Shore duty? No, you went on shore duty.
I went on shore duty.
You went on shore duty from active duty. Anyway, we left Virginia Beach. He came out here to San Diego and became a BUDS instructor, SEAL training instructor. And then we were together all the time. And that was really difficult. So I definitely started to realize then that we had a problem. And I didn't know if it was a relational problem, like, we just didn't get along anymore, or he didn't want to be around anymore. Like I just knew there was a problem.
Yeah.
And definitely a drinking problem.
And did you guys talk about therapies during that time? Like typical therapies? Are you seeing a psychiatrist? Were you discussing like any types of treatments?
I think, well, no, we were, because I was seeing like the psychologist out here.
Yeah, he was doing his thing, and I don't think either one of us had really much of a will for the relationship. He was trying to take care of himself, and I was doing my own thing. I really wasn't interested in marriage counseling at that time.
Right,
but I was getting frustrated because, like, one of the individuals I worked with was just like, hey, like, you should go talk to somebody if you're struggling. And so it just like nothing seemed to be falling into place at that time. It was just like, work sucked, home sucked, like everything sucked.
This person I'm talking to sucks.
Everything.
This next person sucks even more.
And so, like,
yeah,
is that a reflection of the external environment, or is there like something, or is there something going on inside that's not working right now? And that, obviously that's what was going on, because I didn't have what I thought was, I wanted to have a relationship with the kids and Amber, and like that just didn't happen being home. So I didn't know what was happening.
When you were speaking with therapists and psychiatrists, psychologists, during those 2010.
Yeah, psychiatrists can prescribe medicine, psychologists can't, so you kind of see both.
Yeah. And were you finding it first? I would assume it's got to be incredibly hard to relate to somebody's experience the way that a psychiatrist or psychologist would try to relate to yours and talk to you. Did you find like a barrier in between your communication with folks like that just couldn't really be like crossed?
I think most of the people that I spoke to were trained, like were trauma trained or were like veteran trauma trained. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like they did understand, but like I went through so many of them because it's just the system's just fragmented, and so I couldn't even tell you how many different individuals I spoke to.
Why so many? Is that just the way the system's set up?
I think the system's set up because I went back and forth from seeing like either like a psychologist on active duty, and then I'd see some like out in town that were not,
there were doctors mixed in there. There's the VA mixed in there. Then there's all sorts of rotation.
That sounds like so much.
The military, you're always moving, like sometimes every 2 years or,
Yeah, and that was definitely after when I got out, seeing like just everybody. But even while I was in, I got prescribed my first antidepressant in 2010, and I didn't come off them for 7 years. And I was on like all different types. And I felt, again, maybe that attributed to a lot of it because you take one, it doesn't work, or you forget to take it, and then you climb up the walls, because it's like insane when you don't take your medication once you start taking them. And then they switch you to something else, so they increase the dosage. Then you try that, and then something happens there, and then they put something else in because you're like, hey, I can't really sleep too well. So like, here, go back on Ambien, even though I know you used to take Ambien while you're on deployment and mix it with like bourbon, and then that didn't work, and you're like, man, I'm tired. And like, okay, you can't focus. Well, here's New Vigil, and here's Provigil, and I'm like, oh, this stuff's great, except it gives me fucking pounding migraine headaches, so like all this just crap I've dealt with for like the next 7 years, and it was just getting frustrating, and then Amber, once I was out. I went to NICO, my first brain clinic, while I was in, and that was a bit frustrating because they tell you like something's wrong, but they're like, okay, now here, go paint. I'm like, go over here and paint, do some yoga.
Here's and your pastels. Like, go paint a sunset.
They're like, oh, we really, don't do anything for that. And they're like, here's some more meds.
Oh, you breached a village?
Yeah.
Here's go paint a mountain.
Here's some bubbles.
Here's a Bob Ross video for you to watch for 20 minutes while you think about
look at these clouds.
Yeah.
Look at that hair.
Now I think we get it. But the condition that he was in, like now,
we didn't
some
know.
of those
like,
mindfulness things are
sure.
helpful. But at the time, like
you just go from one thing to the next.
The front lines of war to something like
I had friends that went to NICO clinic, I won't mention their two names on here, who literally started like a band at the clinic, like started making believe they were playing the drums, and they were like,
wild.
"Hey, you two idiots have to stop." And they're like, "Oh no, this is hilarious. This is great." You know, so then you have people that not taking any of it seriously.
Right.
I had one friend who we had to paint these masks, and it was kind of like representation of yourself. It was kind of sad when you looked on the wall. All these masks had like tears and like cracked images, and you're like, okay, obviously everyone's coming here is like fucked up, right? Well, my buddy he took like clay, and he made a dick out of it, and he like put it on the forehead and like popped it up on the wall. I'm like, oh, he's definitely not taking this seriously. You know, so just like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you like help us, or we're just gonna fuck around?
That was right before Marcus got out. So I was sort of like, oh, he's got this really comprehensive, medical experience. He's gonna come home and things are gonna be great. Again, very naive.
That was 2012, 2013.
Yeah,
something like that.
11, 12.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
2012. And then you're thinking, well, let's see. We left Virginia Beach and things just got really bad. And so we thought we'll go back to Virginia Beach because we know how to survive in dysfunction. We don't know how to be normal, but we know how to like live really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sort of the plan. And then there was another helicopter crash. And this time it wasn't 11, it was 31 individuals. And at that point, it was like a lot of guys that Marcus worked with, friends of ours, people he went through training with. And it was like, this is Russian roulette all over again. You're just reminded, like, if we go back into this environment, this is what we're signing up for again. And so
we're like, no.
He was like, maybe I should just get out. Again, very naive. Like, oh yeah, let's just get out. We'll just be normal. We'll go for bike rides and it'll be great.
Yeah, I just wanted to run like as fast as I could away from everything.
Yeah.
And when I went to, like I was trying to get my stuff to get out, and the psychologist that I was seeing like regularly was like, dude, there's zero chance like I'm letting you leave. Like, you got a lot of shit going on. He's like, your medical record is like bigger than like the Odyssey. And so they wouldn't let me get out. He's like, you are actually a candidate for medical retirement. I'm like, really? Okay. What does that mean? He's like, well, like, you just, like, I need to make sure that when you get out, like, you're not just like, we don't just spill you on the street.
There's no health care. There's no paycheck.
Right.
Like,
You know? And there's a lot of that, right? I mean, on one hand, like, I hated it. On the other hand, like, I feel a little bit lucky because like it was trying to take care of me.
Because you had somebody that had your back.
Yeah. And so
do you think there's a large number of people that do what you were trying to do, that just kind of run?
Absolutely.
Without
I
any...
know plenty of them. I know guys that contact me now and they're like, dude, I didn't even tell anybody. Like, I just separated. I got out.
The thing is, like, you have to do 20 years in the military to be eligible for military retirement. So it's like a pension. If you come in at 18, you're 38 and you're technically retired. So you have the whole second half of your life to live. And that's, for this generation of soldier that has done 20 years of sustained combat, they really can't get out in their, late 30s, early 40s or 50s and be normal and like have the capacity to go on and totally reinvent themselves. But Marcus got out at 13, and once you hit that 10-year threshold, you're like, well, I'm halfway to military retirement. Every year that goes by, it becomes more and more difficult to, come to terms with getting out. It's like just a few more years, but he was so burnt out, and so many guys in his generation did that between 12 and 14 years.
Yeah,
there was a ton
like,
actually that at that time were like got out. I mean, there was like
medically retired or just took off.
All of it, like medically retired, separated. I mean, there was I think 14 lieutenant commanders, 04s that got out like right at the same time, which was like crazy. Like everything else, like leadership wasn't going well, guys were burnt out. It's just a whole host of things, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't never
this
nail
guy,
one thing.
Yeah, this guy said your medical record was wild and could lead to medical retirement. What were some of the things on your medical record? Like,
just
what were
like
some
head to toe, like a lot of like
head to toe things.
Like
was there anything like
a lot of physical injuries, a lot, and then no, but really like all the mental injuries, right? Like I got medically retired for fucking PTSD and TBI, traumatic brain injury, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, what? Like, fuck PTSD. That's bullshit. Nobody has that. I mean, literally. Still to this day, I will sit here and be like, whatever. I don't, But
well, that was certainly part of like our whole struggle. Like, fast forward, if he's out now and things are really getting bad, and we moved to Texas where the wheels totally come off, and the only diagnosis that he's been given is PTSD. And I'm like, yeah, there's just something about the PTSD diagnosis that doesn't resonate with me, because what I'm seeing here is not like he's conflicted about anything he did overseas. Like, if anything, I thought he had kind of like a serial killer mindset of like, can't wait to go back. Like, it wasn't normal to thrive in a war environment.
Right.
But it was to him.
But even joking about the PTSD thing, I 100% had the symptoms. So like, I was utterly depressed. I had like massive anxiety. Mm-hmm. You know, I was like, those things I definitely had. So if people want to say, well, these are the symptoms of PTSD, then like that's what you get, PTSD. Yeah. But of course, we all know now that PTSD and mild traumatic brain injury, like all the symptoms overlap. So nobody really knows, like, is a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's a bunch of shit that happened before you went in the military, and now some of this stuff exasperated a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Exacerbated.
Well,
exhausted?
I was like,
we can make up a new one if you want.
So again, like, I hate, a lot of this stuff I hate. I don't fucking enjoy doing this and telling people, like, I had a drinking problem, I got medically retired, had some PTSD and depression, anxiety. Like, I still struggle with that. But
suffice to say, we found ourselves in the perfect storm.
Yeah.
By 2015, he was medically retired in 2013. By 2015, it was very evident that we had a real problem on our hands, and we were just growing more and more disconnected.
I didn't think so.
It was escalating, and
well, and now you're the one who brought Ibogaine into the conversation. Is that right?
Ish. Yeah. Yes. To him, yes, but someone brought it to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Who in their right mind would do that?
Right. So how did you come across Ibogaine? I mean, I know about Ibogaine because all my friends are a part of that world too. But coming from your background, and I would assume
we were
looking
for answers. Like, it started like just getting worse. Then it just got bad. Like, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't talk to my friends. I wasn't answering messages. I wasn't getting out of bed. Like, it was just getting to that point where, and I tell people now, like, I don't wish depression on anyone. It is a motherfucker, like real depression. And so that's when I think Amber was like, well, I don't know what else to do. Like, you've done now hyperbaric oxygen therapy. You've done TMS. You've done all these things. You're just like getting angrier and worse and frustrated. And so I think that's when we're like, hey, what else can we do? What else is out there that could potentially figure this issue out?
He was really putting in the work, and that's when I was sort of having these epiphanies. Like, I don't really think it's PTSD, because he would go back overseas in a second, and he loved his job and he loved his teammates. And so, where we were at that point was he had no purpose, no passion, no community, no paycheck. He was dealing with everything from childhood trauma to probably definitely war trauma, the head trauma. And it was just this, it was awful. Mm-hmm. So he was seeing psychologists, whatever. He was put on medications. Things were just getting worse, and I was getting more and more frustrated. Around 2016, a former teammate of his, he probably took his life in 2015, but an article came out in 2016 that said he had a pattern of blast injury found post-mortem in his brain, and they thought that it could be linked to his suicide, similar to what NFL players were struggling with. And then I started to really think, like,
but same thing. Shit. He was like functioning like nobody really knew. It wasn't like, oh, he's damaged. Right. Like, no, it was like he was okay, and then he like started to decline a little bit, and then like it was like one day, poof, like he's gone. Right. So it wasn't like, oh, this dude was like locked up for 3 years, and like, oh, everyone's like, oh yeah, he's going down that road and he's going to.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I mean, suicide is always a surprise. But this one was certainly a very big shock. But luckily his brain was donated by his wife, and she was kind enough to share the results with our community. And for the first time, I was like, oh shit, like this is not a purely psychological condition. Marcus has 15 years of history playing football, 13 years history as a breacher. This can't be good. He's going through all the same symptoms. And so then I started getting him into brain clinics, and I thought, this is it. The brain clinics are going to do the trick. The medication won't, the brain clinics will. And he went through 5, I think, and they were really great with diagnostics, not so great with the follow-on.
They're really good at collecting money too.
Sure.
Not so great with like what to actually do to get better.
So they could tell you, hey, you got a bad brain.
Yeah.
Here's
write us a check.
Here's $600 a month of supplements you should take.
Your brain sucks. Here's our Venmo. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
So he was actually at 3 places here in California, and we were living in Texas, and I came out to visit him, and it was clear that this was not going to get any better. And so shortly before that, sort of what prompted me to get him into these 3 places was our daughter said to me, Mom, how much longer do we have to do this? And it became very clear that I was going to have to make a choice as, you know, their mom and his wife, that I was going to choose our kids. And I had decided to leave him, and I knew what that would mean for me and for them, that they would probably live the rest of their lives without their dad. And so I was really sitting with that and thinking, like, I don't want to give up the fight. I'm a fighter, but I don't really have a choice because I'm a mother. So what do I do? And about a year prior, one of Marcus's former teammates had, his wife had actually contacted me about his trip to Mexico and how life-changing it was. And so I reached back out to them and said, you know, if I can convince Marcus to do this, can you help me make it happen? And they did. So I approached him in a way that I had never done before. Instead of using anger and guilt and condemnation and threats and, you know, all of the bad things, I approached him in love and said that I would continue to fight for him, but he had to fight with me. And so he agreed to do it, but I think he was like, this is nuts. It's not going to work. Nothing has worked.
What were you like when Ibogaine was brought up as a possible like treatment solution or treatment option even?
I thought it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, can I put these in?
No, why?
Because they're out. I have to keep them in for 24 hours, 20 hours a day.
You keep them in.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
I'm going to put them in right now.
I can see your teeth moving apart as we were going.
I'd like to send this to your orthodontist just so.
That's right. Invisalign. Here you go.
This episode brought to you by Marcus's Teeth.
Can you even notice her in?
Are you a paid spokesperson?
No. So this idea gets brought up, and all I can think about is like my parents going to Woodstock, and I'm like, psychedelics for healing.
Isn't that wild that that's the first place your brain goes is to like?
I mean,
it's the conditioning of society.
It's totally conditioned. And so it didn't make sense until I started doing my research, and I said, okay, this is starting to make a little sense that these were really medicines that were abused as recreational drugs.
Didn't give a damn. I was just like, someone help us.
She was like, go do the psychedelics.
Someone help us. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't even know the name of it. I just trusted our friends. And so I was able to convince him to go. And
it's funny when you talk to people like the psychonauts and like all our friends now who we love. They're like, so what'd you do? I'm like, oh, I got introduced to like this little psychedelic called Ibogaine. They're like, what? And I'm like, oh, and then like 2 days later I did 5-MeO DMT. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know? And, but yeah, I mean, we're talking about, have you ever done Ibogaine?
Not Ibogaine, but 5-MeO, yeah. Man,
what a tough, rough.
Is that the most powerful psychedelic you've experienced?
I'm biased.
Yeah.
I think it is one of the, it's not a classic psychedelic like, the others that are a little bit more visual. Like this is like a purely internal experience. Yeah. It's like when you could take as much, not you can't, but like when you're dosed, and your eye shades come off, and you're like at the peak of your experience, you may see like a little bit of like streaks, but that's it. Like you're not quote unquote tripping, right?
Right.
It's not until you put your eye shades on, like you go back, you lie down, because first off, you can't walk. You get something called ataxia, like your body like can't control itself. It's very like you have to, when you ask to go to the restroom, you have to ask because you can't walk there on your own.
Wow. Yeah, is it similar to like a paralysis or like a sleep paralysis?
I don't know what it does to the body, but it doesn't allow you to like really be mobile. So anybody saying like they're, like this, whatever, doing Ibogaine and running around, there's zero chance of that happening.
Yeah.
Like, you can't.
Yeah.
But you're in this awakened dream state. So once your eye shades are on, like you're in the movie, and your movie is your life. I mean, it's nuts. It's like you can, and everybody has similar experiences. They are subjective, But like there's at one point where you literally are watching your brain defrag itself. So like you have all these files and you're just watching the files like just compress, you know? And when you come out of it, you literally feel like you're clear-headed, you're reset, you're sharp again. And it's why it's a wonderful medicine, you know, done properly and with the proper medical support. But then you do visit you do have all those subjective experiences, and you can have them like one-on-one where you are the person talking to whatever trauma or whatever thing that's affecting you, or you can be like kind of above it, watching yourself do it. So it's like or you can be like the other side where you're talking to yourself, you know? So it's like everybody's experience is different, but it relatively the same, right? You kind of go through these same experiences, but you're talking about, you go in there almost at the lowest of your life. Some people call it rock bottom. And you come out almost at the highest of your life, where like you have like purpose again, you're lightweight, you feel.
And dealt with the trauma. I have not done Ibogaine, but I have listened to Marcus's story and hundreds of other veterans in our program.
Yeah,
that you know, it's working on 4 key areas, and the trauma purging psychological piece is a huge part of it. There's the physiological piece with the brain. Ibogaine is very anti-addictive, so Marcus was like repulsed by alcohol for like 9 months after treatment.
I didn't drink for a whole year afterwards. I didn't even want to. The drug's out of your system, by the way, in 24 hours. So it's not the drug, right?
Yeah.
And that's why people are like, oh, you know, 3 months, 6 months. Yeah, whatever it did, it's the brain, because the drug literally has a half-life of 7 hours. So really in 14 hours, depending on how you metabolize, it's gone. And so that's what's really cool about it. So no one can say, oh, it's the drug. Like, well, it's the drug that kind of reset you, but like it's everything else that keeps going, because some people feel good for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is, you know, and then you start to slip, right? And you're like, oh, I don't have that glow. But that's why you need, once you're done, you need to start putting those habits, whatever it is, the meditation or the, you know, and then you can continue on your successful healing like forever. But, you know, people have to get out of their mind. They do something one time and they're healed forever.
No, it's a continual pattern of work. It takes work. There's no magic pill.
No,
you know,
but it is definitely, a reset. And I joke with people. I say, it's like a tourniquet. Like when you go in there, like you're bleeding out, like this kind of puts a tourniquet on and allows you to like, get better.
Was this session, you said it was Ibogaine one day, 2 days later was 5 MEO?
Yeah. And there's a little bit of, you know, argument and opinion about that. Like there's some people out there that think doing 5 MEO too quick after the Ibogaine experience is too much. You know, maybe there's too much serotonin release in the brain. Others think it's perfect for like the cherry on top, because Ibogaine is so deep and dark, and 5 MEO literally can be one of the most like impactful and blissful experiences of your life. So it's a good,
they're synergistically
it's very synergistic. That you know, you just got beat down so bad, and then now you're getting brought back up. So I think research is going to show like what is good and what's not good. But you know, again, no one's coming out of these things like in the negative light, right? And there's like few and far between that have negative experiences. Most of them was because they either stopped, they didn't do anything, they didn't have any integration, they didn't talk to a therapist or coach. They just assumed that they were going to be better forever.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't think you can say that no one has had a bad experience. Everyone comes out on top, because if you aren't prepared and you aren't going to a reputable facilitator and you don't have the integration and preparation before, I'm sure it could be really confusing and potentially traumatizing. I think Marcus is referencing the veterans and spouses in our program because we provide all of that as supplemental support.
Yeah, and that's why I get scared with stuff like, you know, Ibogaine, people shouldn't be doing Ibogaine underground without the support, because first off, you know, there is a cardiac risk. It's, you know, it's minimal if you screen properly, like you're good. But the problem is people lie on their screening. They won't do EKGs. They won't get blood work. They'll lie about what's in their system if they're heroin addicts, right? Like, so that's why you have to go to a reputable place, because again, these are not drugs that we should, you know, take lightly. Like with these.
Yeah, it's not a household drug. You're
No.
not going to bring this. You're not going to bring Ibogaine to Coachella and party with a flower crown, popping Ibogaine.
I joke with
licking
people.
toads.
I joke with people. I'm like, if you're doing Ibogaine for recreational purpose, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
You know.
So what was the reaction from some people in the veteran community when you came back and you told them about your experience?
So two of my best friends I served with were in a car together, actually. I don't know where they were, in Virginia Beach or Hawaii or something. And I got on the phone with them and I told them this experience of exactly what we're talking about now. And they tell the story. By the way, they'll be here. One of them
cool.
will be. So I'll let him tell the story to you tomorrow. But they got off the phone, they turned to each other and they're like, what the fuck happened to Marcus?
It does sound crazy. And honestly, like, we didn't want to tell anyone because we were afraid that we would be judged for saying you needed help, judged for getting help, judged for what kind of help you got.
And judged for doing psychedelics.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Mexico and did drugs, right?
God, that conditioning is so real.
Yeah, and especially in our community where it's like, oh, everyone's, sort of like jockeying for masculinity.
Who
like,
can be the
who's
strongest and
toughest.
work through their problems by punching the wall instead of
like, I'm good
seeking a
here.
shaman.
And
Yeah.
it's clear that you're not.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he told a couple of his friends that he thought could benefit from it. They went down there. They had really powerful experiences. We were raising money for them. We were actually contacted. Marcus's treatment was, ironically, on Veterans Day in 2017. And the next month, in December, a woman contacted him and said, I want to give to a veteran organization, but I want to make sure that it goes to a veteran. I don't want to pay, like, overhead. And he goes, I have a couple buddies. I just had this experience. I have a couple buddies that could really use it. If you would give...
I have some friends that want to go to Mexico and do drugs. Can you donate to that cause? No, but
my buddies want a trip.
Hard.
She was like, whatever whatever.
That's amazing.
So
And
I think they
so
donated $25,000.
She donated like $20,000, and we just gave it directly to the retreat center facilitator, doctor, and we started sending our friends. And then they started having these same experiences. And then we were like, well, we'll raise more money. And so we just started this grassroots movement that became like this crazy wildfire. And we didn't want to talk about it still. It was so stigmatized. And so I wanted 12 months to go by, and I wanted 12 other individuals to have the same experience. So that way we knew that it would last, because it seemed too good to be true, and that it would work for more than just 1 or 3 people. And at the 11.5-month mark, one of my best friend's husbands took his life. And I saw in a journal that I wrote in just yesterday morning, I read the journal for the first time, and it said, we can no longer stay quiet. We have, the feelings I'm feeling are like determination. This cannot happen again. So in honor of Chad, I will speak out. We will speak out. We will do our best to never let this happen again in our community. When we were in his funeral, that feeling, was reiterated, and I was just overcome with emotion and conviction of like, fuck it. I don't care what the costs are. I don't care if it's reputational. I don't care. I left a very, very, very solid career in real estate to do this. And, money didn't matter. Reputation didn't matter. No one was standing with us at that point. We were like ridiculed and made fun of. Someone said we were starting a cult, but we were just like, we can't let suicide become an epidemic in our community, because we've already been through so many war funerals. Suicide funerals would have been the next wave potentially to hit our community, and we've already been through enough. So we just decided that we're going to speak out. We're going to form an organization, and so within the next few months, we had our IRS application submitted, our articles of incorporation filed. And
it feels like
the growth of VETS.
the hardest, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the hardest part of this entire experience for you guys and for others wouldn't be the getting money, wouldn't be logistically finding somebody to give you a pill. It'd be getting somebody to say yes and to actually like be willing to do.
There was a lot of convincing in the beginning.
Initially, at the start, there was a lot of people like, this is crazy, but I trust you. You say, okay, just do some research, read some of this, and get back to me. And like, I get that though. Like, I was that way. I mean, I literally took me like a year before I committed. And, individuals are still doing that, but the good thing is now there's a lot of information out there. And so it's very easy. And if one of your buddies does something where they have had success, you really just trust them. I mean, I had an individual, Naval Academy guy, super bright, incredible athlete, incredible SEAL. He's like, Marcus, I've read every scientific piece for the last 2 years on psychedelic medicine. He's like, and I still was like, this is crazy. He's like, I talked to you for 30 seconds. And he's like, I committed because now I know somebody personally. And again, it's not all fun and games. This is, as you know,
it's hard work.
It is hard work.
I think there's a misperception that it's an excuse to go to Mexico and do drugs.
Sure.
No, that's actually the furthest thing from the truth. Anyone signing up to go do this is signing up for possibly the hardest thing they'll ever do in their entire life.
But I think nothing works better, faster, quicker. I mean, I know, I look at it now and I know I'm going to go once every year and a half. May not be Ibogaine, but it's been Ibogaine. I've been going every year and a half. I know I'm going to go back probably February.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it going, man, I know how tough it's going to be. It's not going to be easy, but I need it, right? You get a little anxiety or you feel like you need to work on things. It works, right?
Yeah.
I'm not just going to go do talk therapy anymore.
No,
I know
fear is, anxiety is rooted in fear, right? And it's such a motivator. And if you're willing to overcome that fear to do the work, then you're going to get the result that you want. Do you see, tell me if this is crazy, but do you see a path toward getting this talked about more by people in the military that are kind of higher ups? Right now, there seems to be a cycle, the way you described, of therapists and psychologists going out to talk to people for 20 minutes. They take it 3 hours. Do you have a goal or a vision for a path toward getting this integrated within more of the mainstream consciousness, specifically within the military as an alternative treatment option? Is that something you think they would ever open up to? Even just a dialogue about it? Not the military sending people to Mexico, but do you think?
Yeah, we're having it, Brent. It's happening.
Yeah.
So we're speaking to senior military leaders, both in the DoD and in the VA. Are we allowed to talk about the?
I would leave that. There's the thing.
There's more fun things that can be secret for now.
Yeah, the thing next week is going to be there's going to be a press conference in DC, and it's going to be announced.
Are we sending Biden to Mexico?
Yeah,
that'd be incredible.
His son already went, but no. But it's going to be a big deal because it means that people are listening, and on both sides of the aisle, and I think it's pretty exciting. So
it is exciting. I think that the active duty component. I don't know. That's tricky territory. Our lane is veterans. But all active duty personnel eventually become veterans. And so is there a way to alleviate suffering before the wheels come off like it did for our family?
Yeah.
I think that,
or just to get a tune-up, guys that are struggling. I don't mean to cut you off. But I just cut you off.
See? That awareness is thanks to
awareness. Thank you, Ibogaine.
Actually, I'm going to cut you off right now, so hold on.
Respectfully.
But respectfully.
In gratitude, shut the fuck up. Go ahead.
Shit, where were we?
Preventative.
Military.
So it doesn't mean a person is damaged or ruined or rock bottom, but maybe is just wanting to get tuned up, needs... he tore his shoulder and wants to get back in the game. Maybe it becomes a case where, individuals are able to heal and then get back in the fight. Or if they heal, then maybe they decide, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. But I think they should potentially have the choice to go either way, because I don't think these medicines are turning everybody into hippies. Unless you want to be a hippie, sure, go be a hippie. Mm-hmm. But if you want to potentially get better and then you're right back in the scrum, why not? Right?
Someone said to us that, we've really failed American soldiers in having this creative outlet after battle. So
they said you failed?
Oh, no, not us. But as a nation, we've failed.
Oh, right. Yeah.
American troops in having some sort of a creative outlet after battle. So in every warrior culture, there was some sort of an intentional reset and a community healing, whether it was Native Americans in peyote or samurai. whatever these different cultures outlets were, we don't really have that.
Yeah,
so
the Americans drinking beer in
the
Germany.
culture is like, go drink your face into the ground. And
Right.
the culture is also, don't say when you have a problem, because then you're going to get pulled off the line. And if you get pulled off the line, then you're going to lose your identity and your community, and it's going to be horrible. So you might as well just like grit your teeth and keep going. That will catch up with people.
I didn't even think about that. I know you guys got to go in a few minutes, but real quick on that note, I didn't even think about the historical significance of other communities of people centering around a medicine like that.
They all did it. Like we're like the.
Oh my God.
We forgot how to like reset. Like all these warrior cultures.
What other ones in addition to Native Americans? I mean, I'm told that's going to be my research project for the night.
Like Roman, like all these other different classes had different ways, even if they weren't like we're talking about psychedelic
sustainable
medicines.
agriculture. You know, it was some sort of a creative.
It was something to allow an individual to reset.
Yeah.
Before they went back into battle.
Wow.
And that could be a bunch of different things. You know, I don't think we haven't
really
done. We
have
just
that.
keep going. We just just get back on the train. But that's our culture, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, build big, fast, go, and
come home for a couple weeks, get on Twitter, yell at people, and then go back overseas. Yeah.
And you know, some people can do that. And I freaking commend them. I bow down, but not everybody can.
Marcus, you also have to.
Amber.
You also have to think about how many people are coming apart at the seams, and you might not always be able to tell, because people would have said that about us. Just because they appear to be doing okay doesn't mean that they are. Right? You know, like people would have looked at us and thought like, oh, they're an all-American family. And
here's my favorite comment. Fair enough.
The truth of it was
fair enough.
Totally something different.
Yeah.
So you never know when someone's struggling, especially when you've been conditioned to not admit it.
America.
Mm-hmm. So now VETS raises funds to send veterans on these types of trips. Is that the main initiative now? Yeah.
So we provide funding for veterans who are leaving the United States for access to psychedelic therapies. We do provide funding for ketamine therapy, ketamine-assisted psychotherapy stateside, but most of our grant recipients are leaving the country. Most of them are doing the Ibogaine 5-MeO protocol. We don't diagnose, we don't treat, we don't...
Right, you're not on the medical side.
Not at
but
all.
Obviously you vet the places they go to.
We vet the places, so we are sending people to... other vetted retreats.
Yeah, it's not a hut with some dude named Dan.
In certain areas where it's legal. Not in the laundromat. What else? Ayahuasca. We've written,
Is
couples.
there a want to bring some of those psychoactive retreat experiences stateside? Or
I mean, that would be amazing if it wasn't criminal.
Right.
We're a 501c3, so we have to abide by federal law, and we are unfortunately under the thumb of the Controlled Substances Act. So anything that's scheduled, we can't provide funding for.
But it's happening. So Oregon, you will be able to travel to Oregon in the next 2 years and get psilocybin therapy from a medical establishment. Same thing now, Prop 122 in Colorado is doing the same thing. They're actually fast forwarding it. It'll be a year. So they've taken kind of all the lessons from Oregon and have already applied them. But again, it'll be federally illegal. So I'm not really sure how the rules are going to...
Wild.
And again, how much are they going to charge? Like, is it going to be $6,000 a pop where like only certain people could afford that? So I still think there's a lot. But I think, Amber used to joke and say, we've finished our VETS mission. Once we don't have to fund people going outside the U.S., they can just, they can have...
what's the goal for VETS?
Yeah.
To not exist.
To not be around, anymore.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Because because our government has done what's necessary to take care of those that have defended this nation. So, nonprofits can only do so much. Our donors can only provide so much funding to keep the lights on. At the end of the day, these guys and gals were willing to give their lives for this country, and this country should be taking care of them, not a nonprofit. It's the therapies are so far superior to anything else currently available. It's caught on like wildfire in the veteran community. At minimum, we need to get more research going. Like ayahuasca or Ibogaine or 5-MeO, these are all like the main therapies that our grant recipients are pursuing, and they're really effective.
Yeah.
Yet they're scheduled right alongside crack cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin. It's not the same. They have a high therapeutic use, and they're actually being used to treat addiction. So, to be scheduled alongside.
To be scheduled with addictive drugs when you're a
Exactly.
medicine that treats addiction
Exactly.
is wild.
It's just a complete lack of education. So we're educating, we're advocating, we want rescheduling, we want more research, we're totally backing therapeutic use. We're concerned about veterans who are hearing these stories and thinking that this is a miracle cure and thinking that they can just get a bag of mushrooms and go out into a field and have this life transforming experience. It could backfire if the government doesn't step in and do something. Like, let's get more research going at minimum, because we know the research will look really freaking good.
Yeah. I'm looking at the research right now. There he is.
Here I am.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being down to do this. There's so much more to talk about. I mean, we could do it again.
We're going to have a great weekend.
It's going to be a phenomenal weekend.
Big parties.
Right now, you and I need to do a push-up contest before you guys go get dinner. And then
I have a tight
it'll be off.
Button
Marcus
up
is
shirt
wearing
on.
a medium.
It's already about to pop, dude.
And my shoulder hurts, by the way, so I can't do it. Oh, sorry.
All good. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
so
All right,
much.
It's
see
been
everybody.
awesome.
And that's it. I love these guys, man. Marcus Capone, we did do a push-up contest immediately following this podcast episode. And even though he's got a foot and 100 pounds on me of pure muscle, I am happy to say that he only beat me by 976 push-ups, which is pretty good. Considering Amber and Marcus Capone do incredible work. Check out more of what they do at vetsolutions.org. You can donate, you can research, you can learn, you can reach out, you can be a part of an incredible mission and an incredible family. Subscribe to the podcast. We got more episodes coming every week. You can follow the podcast at Good Trip Podcast on Instagram. You can follow me at Brent Pella. I repost clips all the time. And check back here every week. Give us a star and a like and a rating. You know how all that stuff works on Spotify and iTunes. I appreciate y'all so much. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Peace.